You're listening to the Dynamic Thinking Project podcast. This is episode 66, and today's topic is coincidences or something else. Hey everyone, Adam Musalli here. Welcome to the Dynamic Thinking Project podcast. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. This podcast is released every Friday, and show notes are found at the website, themindtechinstitute.com. It's all one word. Come back often and feel free to add this podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook. All links are in the show notes and website. And now, let's get started. In the last episode, we talked about the butterfly effect and how things and events seems to be sort of connected even if we don't see how, or if we cannot see the connection. I know thinking of such topics can freak some people out, but if you're one of those people who can get freaked out when knowing something new, then I think you shouldn't know anything. Just live your life as you've been always living, and never think outside the box, which you've designed or created, or maybe someone else designed or created for you. Nevertheless, other people get freaked out when they know something or learn something new, but they persisting on learning and know more. If you're one of those people, then good for you, because that's how people evolve and develop their intelligence to progress in life, even in career-wise, relationship-wise, social life, any type of progression to success. You see, it's never about freaking out. It's just about wondering and being amazed of how things work and how this universe, or on a smaller scale, how your life is running. Remember, the very first episode was about 23 simple mind hacks, and I mentioned that your brain actually releases the same chemicals when you're excited and when you're scared. So, for those who freak out, maybe you're not freaked out. Maybe you're just excited. And what's the point to have a brain if you're always gonna keep it closed? If you wanna learn more about how to become open-minded, you can go back and listen to episode 60, I guess. It's about how to become an open-minded person. And as you know, many people like to stay close-minded because they are afraid of change. Certainly, there is a price you pay for being open-minded, and to also learn more about that, you can go back to episode 61. This episode is about some strange documented coincidences, and maybe you too had some strange coincidences in your life. Could be how you met your partner, maybe your career or other events. However, you know already that I arrange these topics in such a way to prepare you psychologically to the next one, to the next episode. And sometimes I'll be doing so to prepare you mentally to a topic I'm going to talk about next year. Maybe not that far. But as you can see how sometimes I say go back and listen to a certain episode, that's because I prepare these episodes in a special order as I talk you step by step, progressively to certain topics. Otherwise, many people get lost along the way. It's the same if you want to count from 1 to 10. You don't go 1, 2, 8, 9, 10. No, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's where we are getting in the next several episodes. Some really mind-blowing stuff where you really start thinking that there is really something deeper than the life you live. But here we get there carefully instead of getting all freaked out and forming conspiracy theory clubs and other groups misleading others. It's just how we should approach a topic and approach it logically instead of emotionally, especially those events or coincidences which we are going to talk about in this episode. But right, we get the intro out of the way. If you're interested in learning and becoming a fully qualified hypnotherapist, neuro-linguistic programming, NLP practitioner or master practitioner, a life coach or a counselor, now you can study all that online. All you need to do is visit mti.edu.au or themindtechinstitute.com, and you'll find all these courses along with many other courses once you click on the online courses tab. All our diplomas and advanced diplomas are accredited and recognized worldwide. And for more information, all can be found online, themindtechinstitute.com. So going back to our topic, some strange coincidences. There are some coincidences in life which might happen to you or someone else, someone you know, that makes it hard for even science to explain, and that leaves us with few theories such as could it be time travel, parallel universes, the Mandela effect, or we might all be living in a computer program. All these topics will be covered in the upcoming episodes, by the way, so stay tuned. Really some interesting topics are coming soon. And here are some strange coincidences. The first one, which I found it a bit bizarre, is the separated twins brothers. The story goes as twins were separated at birth. Their mother put them up for adoption, and the family who adopted each of those two children, they didn't know that there was another twin child to the one they are adopting. While growing up, each twin with different families both shared some very strange similarities. For example, both were adopted and were named James after they were adopted by the family who adopted them, the new family. Both grew up and became policemen. Both men married to a woman named Linda. Both men had a son. One man named his son Alan James, and the other one named his son James Allen. Both men had a dog, and both named their dogs Toy. Both men eventually got divorced and remarried again to women named Betty. Remember, both men's ex-wives' names were Linda. And keep in mind that those two men, who were twin brothers, never met each other till later, and were astonished with these similarities, and that really makes you think. Now, this is too strange to be just a coincidence. It's like we really live in a simulated universe where all our lives are a computer program, or nature or God sometimes has a great sense of humor. So this is really bizarre, and yes, this event is well documented. Next event is Edgar Allan Poe. There are a lot of people who looked into this case think that Edgar Allan Poe had a time machine, or he's a time traveler. Here's the story anyway. Edgar Allan Poe in 1838 wrote and published a book called The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pine of Nantucket. In the book, a ship sinks, and there are 4 men who survived. They ended up starving, and they ate one of them, who was a cabin boy named Richard Parker. Now, according to the author, Edgar Allan Poe, the book is based on real life events. However, when he made that statement, it turned out it wasn't true. But 46 years later, something very strange and spooky happened. A boat actually did sink. 4 members of the crew survived. After the men got starved, the men did eat a cabin boy who was among the 3 other survivors. And here when it get crazy, the cabin boy's name was Richard Parker. So, is this also a coincidence? Is it a projection? Or was Edgar Allan Poe a time traveler, saw the event happened and he put it in his book, and then he said the event in his book are based on real-life events, but later he changed his statement because he got either ridiculed or pressured somehow to change it. Who knows? Another interesting case is Miss Unsinkable. Her real name is Violet Jessup, and she was nicknamed Miss Unsinkable, of course, for a reason. Well, she was a nurse and a stewardess who worked on ships. First event in 1911, she was working on RMS Olympic when the Olympic collided with HMS Hawke, but she survived. Next, she was working on the Titanic. When the Titanic hit the iceberg on April 14th, 1912, and you guessed it, she survived too. Lastly, she was on board the HMHS Britannic in 1916 when the Britannic hit a sea mine and sank. And guess what? She survived too. Well, that's some really crazy coincidence here. Don't you think? Unless she had some unknown survival skill to survive 3 sinking ships and big ships. We're not talking about boats here. Anyway, she survived long after those events and she passed away of congestive heart failure in 1971 at the age of 83. Now, let's move more recently in the present time. I'm sure you've heard or maybe you watched the cartoon show The Simpsons. The Simpsons had many accurate coincidences, or maybe you can say predictions. But the best one, at least in my opinion, is an episode in season 11 titled Bart in the Future, where they predicted Donald Trump will be president. Keep in mind that the episode was in season 11, and that was back in 1999 to 2000. During the latest president campaign, most people didn't predict that Trump will actually win. But back in 1999 or 2000, writers of The Simpsons did predicted and showed Donald Trump is the president. And not only that, in 1999, in that episode, you can clearly see Donald Trump on the escalator waving his right hand to people, and exactly the same scene, same elevator, same color, same scenery, everything. And I think it was at Trump's Tower in New York, but it's exactly the same. Now, is that a coincidence? Or maybe something else called predictive programming? We have a whole episode about predictive programming coming very, very soon. Another very strange coincidence is a cyclist called Martin Durjan. He escaped 2 very well-known major plane crashes in his life. He had a ticket to board Malaysian airline flight 370. Do you remember that Malaysian flight that disappeared in 2014? Yep, that's the one. So an hour before the flight was ready to take off, he decided to change his flight to another flight that was scheduled to take off an hour later. That decision had saved his life. And here's the second crazy coincidence. 4 months later in the same year, 2014, he had another ticket to fly on Flight 17, which it was shot down over Ukraine, if you remember. He also change his ticket to save some money on a cheaper flight. And that decision didn't just save him money, but it saved him his life. Now, there are lots of other coincidences, such as the Abraham Lincoln and JFK, the Titanic, the tragedy of the Hoover Dam, the first and last British soldiers of World War I, where the graves of the first and the last soldier which were killed in that war are located 6 meters from each other, and even their headstones face each other. That wasn't a deliberate arrange by any way. So that's also very interesting. Also, the taxi driver coincidence, where in 1975, a 17-year-old boy was killed while riding his moped. He was killed exactly a year after his 17-year-old brother was killed while riding the same moped at the same intersection by the same taxi driver, with the same driver, carrying the same passenger. There are many other coincidences as such, but the question still remains. Are they just mere coincidences, or are they confirmation bias or selection bias, where the human mind fall prey to it? And it's basically when we all the times the events didn't happen, but focusing instead on the more surprising times when something happens. We teach that in our NLP training, by the way. There is also the probability lever, which is what may be rare on average, or when considering all possible scenarios can be less rare for specific scenarios, even if they are marginally different. There's also the law of truly large numbers. And the simplest example to give you about the law of truly large numbers is the Violet Giuseppe case, who survived the sinking ship, including the Titanic, as well as Martin Dejean, who escaped the 2 flight crashes. And according to the law of truly large numbers, it's not surprising at all where millions of people throughout history had been on flight and ships, and most of the times no incidents happen. But a story like Violet Giuseppe and Martin Dejean has happened. Also, there is a famous calculations known as Littlewood's Law, which is giving the numbers of hours we are awake every day, and assuming an event takes about a second to occur. Now, if you calculate the odds of something happening to you are only 1 in a million, well, you should know that things happen to you about once every 35 days. There is a statistician called David J. Hand took this even further. With 7 billion people on Earth, the chance that an event with 1 in a million probability to each of us won't happen today is 1 in 10 to 3,040. And as Percy Diaconis put it, the truly unusual day would be a day where nothing unusual happens. So, what do you think? Coincidences or something else? I personally keep an open mind because there is still a lot to learn. And the most ignorant person is the person who thinks he or she knows it all. So put it simply, we simply don't know what we don't know. And once again, if you would like to study and become a fully qualified hypnotherapist, neurolinguistic programming NLP practitioner and master practitioner, a life coach or a counselor, now you can study all that online. All you have to do is visit mti.edu.au or themindtechinstitute.com, and you'll find all these courses along with many other courses. Once you click on the online courses tab, all our diplomas and advanced diplomas are accredited and recognized worldwide. And for more information, all can be found online, themindtechinstitute.com. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, as usual, you can email me. The email is on our website. themindtechinstitute.com, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, especially if you are listening to this podcast on YouTube. The Dynamic Thinking Project podcast is released every Friday. Until next time, take care and enjoy your weekend. This is Adam Muselli, signing out.